The situation and information around COVID-19 is changing every day. With that in mind, please note that this episode was recorded on March 30th. This is a special edition of Note, a podcast on innovation. We are having timely conversations with some of the innovators from Season 1 about the coronavirus pandemic and how it's affecting their personal, professional, and business lives. Today we are talking with Dr. Juan Caicedo. Dr. Caicedo is a professor and department chair of the University of South Carolina College of Engineering and Computing. Juan specializes in structural dynamics to make our world safer and more resilient to disruptors like natural disasters and climate change, as well as changing human behaviors. When we talked last, Juan discussed his role as a professor.
Professors have basically two roles. They teach classes, which is what most people know, but the other half of their life is to actually create knowledge, and that's where the innovations come into place.
The different experiments in his department.
In this lab in particular, we are 5 people working in this lab. There are all sort of different things happening right now. We have a faculty member that is working in creating stronger walls so they can be standing during a tornado or a hurricane. We have another faculty member that is looking at creating a new type of concrete that can be used for concrete ties in rail. And some of the work that I do, I'm looking in floor vibrations.
And how they can shape the world for the better.
And it was amazing when we look at the data that you can tell when they wake up, you can tell when they take naps, they can tell when they go for lunch, right? Just by looking at the amount of vibration in the house. So you can actually use this to be able to determine whether or not the person is still healthy, right? If the person is changing patterns, and that might be an indication that the person is getting sick. And then you can have a doctor being more proactive and going and calling the patient rather than waiting for the patient to get so sick that then needs to go to the ER.
He also talked about how innovation can be fostered in schools and the different ways he and his students maintain that innovation throughout their careers. If you haven't seen the videos or listened to the podcast session, check it out online at scribblesc.com. Juan, it's great to be talking with you again. I appreciate you taking the time to chat. Can you talk a little bit about, what has it been like managing your team? I'm sure it's been very difficult, but yes, can you talk a little bit about how managing that team has changed?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. We had basically about a week and a half to be able to switch between classes in person to classes online. And the thing that we had to do is basically come together and all faculty and staff to start brainstorming what are the best ways to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically had meetings 3 times a week for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, just saying, hey, I saw this. This is how we can do this. And then somebody else will come the next meeting and say, oh yeah, we can improve it this way. So it's been interesting. I think we've been working more as a unit because of the challenge, even though we're not physically present in the same place. The other thing that happened is, so in addition to a faculty member that teach and do research, there is a group of staff that support all of this. And, all of the staff has been telecommuting. That means even though we're physically distant, I think we're actually much closer than before.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is allowing them to work closer because of the distance? Like, what's allowing that to happen?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I think if these had happened, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, where teleconferencing and so forth was not as good as it is right now, where we didn't have the right tools to work. Like, for example, now we can send documents electronically to be signed very easily, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that technology was not available 5 years to 10 years ago. So it's even though it's a very challenging situation, what I'm finding out is all of those tools are actually out there. We're putting all of those tools together to be able to, each of us to work at home. And so far, yes, the work is not efficient. I'm not getting as much done as I used to when I was in the office, right? It's not the same as walking into the classroom to teach a class. But I think we're getting it done, and in a good way. I don't think I don't think the educational experience of my students in my class is sacrificed too much. Let's put it that way.
Okay. How has the research program been impacted by this? Are you all able to go into the lab and conduct any research at all, or is that off limits right now?
Yeah, that is off limits right now. So what most people have been able to do is kind of switch gears and do a lot of the data analysis in the last couple of weeks. So instead of actually doing experiments in the lab, we're doing the plotting of the data, looking at the data, trying to understand what data of prior experiments mean. But I think that's going to come to an end, and we're going to have to do something about it. I don't know exactly what's going to be in that situation. There's only a few research programs that are allowed to continue. Those are, for example, those that are related with the virus itself. So there is a professor in environmental engineering group that is doing some of that research. And some other ones, but very, very, very few research programs are actually doing experiments today at the university.
Most of the research has had to stop for now, but you're able to continue.
I wouldn't say stop. I think we have shift gears. You kind of shift gears. The research hasn't stopped yet. But if this continues for too long, there are going to be some of those research programs that might not be able to continue until we do some experiments.
Okay, and then on the reverse side of that, in terms of the distance learning piece of that, you've been able to adapt that probably a little better in that while you're not able to come together in the classroom, you can still, for the most part, have everybody participate within a remote conference and then field any questions that way, as well as lecture to the students, online.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I was very curious, and I think the rest of the faculty was very curious, is we're trying to hold our classes at the same time as before. So the question is, are we really going to have enough people going to these virtual classes, or it's only going to be only half of the students? And interestingly enough, it is about the same amount of students that we had in classes in person. So people who are still interested in learning, they're doing the effort, they're doing their part as well to try to go to these classes, try to ask questions, and to learn the material.
You're seeing how a lot of how a lot of classes can be done remotely. Do you think that that's, once this is over, going to become more and more of a pattern we see, regardless of whether there's a shock to the system or not? Do you think that academia will mostly return to brick and mortar learning when this is over?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I was in a teleconference not too long ago with somebody who has done a lot of these distance education in the past. And what this person was saying is, listen, we've been trying to do distance education forever, right? The first thing that we tried was with paper and pen, and we'll send this by mail. And the person will work on these things and return it back. So this idea of distance education really is not new. And what people have found over the years is, yes, there is people who can learn this way. There's no question about it. But there is also a lot of people that need a little bit more of a help, right, to learn the material a little bit faster. And I think that covers most of us. We are more productive in learning when we are in the environment. We're immersed in that environment of learning. And so I do think there are going to be some changes, and I think those changes are going to be to enhance that environment that we had before. To give you an example, now I personally feel a lot more comfortable creating some videos showing how I solve problems for my class. Well, next semester, when we're all back in campus, I'm probably going to still be doing these videos. So now the students are going to have the opportunity to go to class, to listen to me, tell the concepts and solve some problems. But they also going to have the videos from the past semesters. So I actually think that it's going to enhance the experience that the students have at the universities.
Yeah, that's a great example, Juan. I was thinking about it more from a content standpoint, and I've seen that even with my my son, who's teacher, and he's in preschool, but she's gone to the extent of recording a lot of videos of her even just reading a story. And I did not even think about the fact that, okay, once she's done that for several weeks, she may have a back catalog of, 20, 30 videos around these stories that she's read that she could potentially reuse or incorporate into her curriculum. So that's actually a great idea, a great thought. Are there any other changes or adaptations that you see might continue in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the other one that I can see continue in the future is office hours, right? Nothing is preventing me to actually holding office hours virtually. So all of this really has been a learning experience for a lot of us. And I think all of these little tools that we're learning, we're going to adapt them to enhance what we are already doing.
Do you also feel like the academic institutions will require now for instructors, professors in their design of their classes to have virtual or remote plans built for situations like this? Is that going to become potentially a new standard for a baseline class design?
I don't think necessarily for new class design, because this is a very unique situation, right? I don't think we're going to be, hopefully not. You just never know, but hopefully we're not going to be experiencing the same thing in the next year or 2 years or 3 years, right?
Right.
But I do think that what it is creating is, I think the instructors themselves are going to be willing to do some of these things because we were forced to try them out.
Gotcha.
So instead of being mandated by the institution, I think it's going to be more of a grassroots type of effort where faculty are going to say, oh yeah, I tried this. I tried to do an online exam and that worked out. Now I have these students who are, let's say, the student is traveling, the student has some type of difficulty and they have to go home or something along those lines. So enabling those things for those special situations.
Are there any specific brands that you could share with the listeners so that, if there are other instructors who are listening or professors that they might, learn from some of the things that you've tried out? For example, what conferencing software have you found to work best, or video recording or video storage? Can you speak to any of those?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I tell you that I tried out and then worked better than I expected. I have this smart pen. It's called Neo Smart Pen. And I have seen people create videos where they write in a paper and you can see what they're writing on the screen, and you can also see their faces as they explain what they're doing.
Okay.
And so I'm doing now problems using this smart pen. And it's nice. It's very easy to use. I use it in my phone, and then I upload the video to Blackboard, and that's all I have to do. It works very well.
So, okay, I'm actually looking at this right now. It's one of the virtues, I guess, of doing these conversations remotely. As you're talking about it, I'm able to look it up, and I can tell you, this Neo Smart Pen is really cool. Again, for our listeners out there, it's neosmartpen.com.
You should look at this. So the particular part that I'm using is called Paper Tube, and it allows you to basically you can search it in YouTube or. And you can see some people just basically giving class, and all they're using is their pen and their and a special type of paper that comes with the pen.
Yeah, this is really useful. Thank you. But my last two questions are more revolve around the impact from an urban planning and design standpoint. Do you believe there are any lasting impact to or changes to how we approach urban planning and design because of this? Because of what we're experiencing now?
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I've been thinking about this, and one of the things that I wonder is how is this pandemic going to impact our social fabric, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can have positive impacts, but can also have some negative impacts. Like, are people going to be comfortable again going to restaurants, right? I also realized, we design houses with a particular purpose. We don't design the houses for us to work on them necessarily. There is huge opportunities to design spaces to have multi-use in our own houses. So, that might be something that might come out of this pandemic, is how do you design a house so you can actually work on it at the same time and be your home at the same time. And I think as people are learning to telecommute, I've been amazed. I have a group of 5 staff members, and now we're all working from our house. It's amazing what the technology that we have today allow us to do. Mm-hmm. And as we learn that is even possible, you start thinking about transportation systems, right? Do we really are going to use that amount of transportation in the future? And in some cases, you might see that some small towns in the Midwest are now flourishing because they have all of these telecommuters from companies that allow people to do this. I think that's going to increase. So the way that our cities and our towns are going to be distributed might actually change as in the long term as a result of all this.
Do you think that waves of new urbanism and this sort of sense of returning to the city, and there's more people there, it's more efficient from a public transportation and energy standpoint, do you think all of that is challenged by some of what's happening now, or do you think that in the end, we just have to figure out the health piece of that better, that model is still the most relevant model for how to organize people in a world system, or are you saying in some ways that exurbs, the suburbs, that because of the potential for telecommuting, that there might not need to be in this a hard push to collect into large cities? Do you think there's a seesaw in either of that, or is it just going to kind of be pretty fluid as we go from decade to decade because of this?
I think that is what is happening is that people are going to have more options. So there is not really a one answer of cities are going to flourish or the suburbs are the ones who are going to be flourishing. I think you're going to see perhaps both of them doing okay because people will have the option to either go live downtown if that's what they really want to do, or go and live in the suburbs if that fits better their lifestyle because there is telecommuting. So I do see it that way. I have a couple of friends that they really work from home, and if they wanted, they could move to somewhere in Missouri, right? Mm-hmm. In the middle of cornfield if they wanted to, because their work do not depend on the geographical location where they are. So I just think that it's going to provide people with more flexibility to move around and to live in different places because of the possibilities of telecommuting.
So is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners? Any advice or any hope for the future, or anything else that you would like to say?
I think one of at least in the part of education, one of the really important parts is education is not really about teaching, it's about learning. And when we look at all of these online things that we're seeing, is a lot about the content delivery, but it's not about the environment of learning. And so, I would like for people to realize that environment is still very important, that it's not about opening YouTube and watching videos about somebody who knows something. It's about being immersed in that environment, being able to ask questions, being able to interact with other people that are learning as well. And all of that is what creates learning. It's not what creates teaching.
That's actually a good point. I was sort of thinking through what you were saying there, and it's almost as if sometimes I have to be around to hear the questions and comments that other people have in response to the subject, because I may have not known to ask that question, right? I may have not gotten to that point yet. They did, and they were able to ask it, and I'm still learning from your answer or someone else's answer and interactions with those questions. So that's such a compelling point to the understanding of how we learn, which is it's not passive and it's not a monologue and it's not it's not a passive experience in that way. We still need those interactions. And so I hadn't thought of that. Dr. Caicedo, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I hope you stay healthy and well, you and your family. And, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and our listeners, as well as just for supporting the Scribble program too. And I hope to see you soon in person.
Yeah, I hope so. All right, stay safe as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into our special edition of Note, a podcast on innovation. These are challenging times for everyone and in ways expected and unexpected. You might be facing the virus head-on or supporting a loved one who is fighting for their lives. You might be a business owner worried about how to take care of your employees, or an entrepreneur losing momentum on a vision you've devoted your life to building. You might be a leader wrestling with a lack of information and deciding between the lesser of two evils. You might be someone who has a great way of solving problems and making a difference. Or you might just be tired and lonely from the social isolation. Whatever your case may be, remember you are not alone and that we all carry each other. One of my favorite quotes of all time is this: "You may see me struggle, but you will never see me quit." Now more than ever, the world needs you to show up today. You are powerful, you are valuable, and what you believe changes the world. It needs that special thing you've been dreaming about since you were little. It needs your spark to light up the darkness. So stay positive, my friends. Take care of your health, stay home, wash your hands, love your family, and keep dreaming big.